first meeting of Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order, and we are going to begin this meeting with just the chair present. We're going to take items 5 and 9 on consent. So if you're here on any of those items, we are also going to take public comment, but we have no public comment cards, so that is closed as well. And we will begin with item number 1.
Item number 1 is a discussion item, Personnel Department to present a video on civilian open enrollment employee benefits.
Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the Joint Labor Management Benefits Committee, the committee requested that we come back to show a very brief video which talks about some of the benefits changes we're making in the upcoming year, really to express appreciation to the committee for the leadership that you've shown in helping us develop surveys, focus groups, and so forth to create this package that we think really serves the best interests of our members. And so I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Montagna to introduce the video and give you some statistics on our open enrollment so far.
Yeah, so just very briefly, just wanted to share some quick numbers. So we've had over 10,000 member visits to our new LA Well website this month. So we're still in the middle of open enrollment. That won't conclude until the end of the month. We've also had approximately 800 individuals that were listening into the webinars that we did this month. We've seen about 150 people via the on-site meetings that we've held, and we've had a little over 2,500 individuals visit the Anthem microsite, which is created just for our members, just so to help them navigate the changes and to get information. We've also had some really good traffic in to see the member advocates. That's a new resource that we introduced this month, so people coming into our offices on the 8th floor and visiting with those member advocates. So we view this as this outreach campaign has been really successful. And with that, we wanted to share with you the video that was part of the materials that were distributed to the membership.
And I'm glad to hear it's been successful and well utilized. That's very encouraging.
You spoke, we listened. In 2016, we conducted a member survey and focus groups to help us improve our civilian employee benefits program. In 2017, we're excited to introduce a number of changes and improvements which we hope will better serve your needs. First, Anthem Blue Cross has been selected to replace Blue Shield as the provider of our PPO, narrow network, and
Well, that's really exciting. I'm glad to see we've come this far. What are we planning in terms of the wellness program and the wellness site? Obviously, it looks like we've got better marketing for it, but then what are we actually going to do with it?
Right. So we're building our wellness program now. We actually this week are going to be announcing financial wellness workshops. The vision for this until we've been able to fully build the wellness infrastructure is to be doing quarterly engagement campaigns on different topics. So for this quarter, for the balance of this year, we're going to be doing some workshops around financial wellness. Starting in January, we're going to be doing some workshops and basically trying to highlight the vision plan and use of that benefit through the pop-up clinics, and then we'll look forward into what we'll be doing next year. But part of this does involve going out and most likely procuring for a wellness some firm that can help us deliver the services, and hopefully some of those services will be on site as well.
And again, in our negotiations with our vendors for the upcoming year, they've each allocated some amount of money to support our wellness efforts. So we had some from our previous incumbent, and then we've got some that we can look forward to going forward from Anthem and from Kaiser.
When do we think we actually start the focus on health and fitness?
That will probably start after the vision campaign. So what we want to do is we wanted to start on topics that were relatively neutral for members, so that they don't perceive the wellness program as sort of, kind of a finger wagging, you should do this, you should do that. We wanted it to be neutral to start with because we think it's important to gain their trust and credibility of the program. But we do intend to move into that as we get into the early part of next year.
So obviously that's beneficial not only for the employee but for the city as well. It's a win-win for everybody if we can do it.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your progress. Item number 2.
Item number 2, CEO report relative to the 6th Street Viaduct Replacement Project Staffing Plan, 2016-17. This matter has also been referred to the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee.
Good morning. Lori Hancock with the CAO. The report you have before you was adopted by the Seismic Governance Committee on June 30th, 2016. It allows for 8 positions for the 6th Street Viaduct. This is the same staffing that was allocated in 2015-16 with one revision. We have requested that we add one senior management analyst 1 position and hold vacant 1 management analyst position. Excuse me. When the project was originally conceived, it was going to be design, bid, build project, a standard rollout of a construction project. We're now using the construction manager, general contractor, CMGC project delivery method, and that requires, rather than one construction contract, we're now broken it down into about 10 different units. Will be run through the same contractor, but each individual component, such as the demolition, the construction, abatement, all of those things are broken down into different contracts. In addition to that, we have a number of regulatory agencies that we're dealing with. So the project is considerably more complex than it was originally envisioned. So our office is recommending that a senior management analyst 1 position be swapped, basically, for the management analyst position.
So where are we as far as timeline? What's the status of the project? How far along is it? When do you think it gets completed?
We are now 3/4 of the way through demolition. We expect to award the contract in November for construction of the viaduct itself. We plan on having the bridge completed and reopened by the end of 2020, or 19, excuse me, and then there will be closeout activities through 2020, 2021. So we'll need staffing through that time. The staffing component of this is about $11.6 million, and it is paid for by the project.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll approve the recommendations in the CAO report. Thank you. Item number 3.
Item number 3, Department of General Services report relative to the exemption of one construction and maintenance supervisor from the civil service pursuant to Charter Section 1001D2.
Welcome.
Morning. Dan Yoshimura for the Personnel Department on behalf of the Department of General Services.
And is there a funding source identified for this item?
The position will be funded through salary savings.
Salary savings.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was my only question. So we will approve the General Services Department request with that funding source identified.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4.
CAO report relative to substitute and in lieu position authorities needed for 2016-17.
Good morning, Zara Bukirin Garcia with the Office of the CAO. Before you is a list of substitute and in lieu position authorities that have been approved by the City Administrative Officer under the authority of the Departmental Personnel Ordinance. Attachment 1 is a list of substitute authority positions. These positions are generally used on a temporary basis to assist departments in addressing increased workload, layoff avoidance, or long-term absence of an employee. Attachment 2 is a list of in lieu position authorities. These positions are typically used as a temporary solution for classification problems or for entry-level training wherein a department will underfill a position. The report is informational only. It is recommended that you note and file the report.
How's the number and type of positions compared to previous years?
I don't have the exact counts on me, but it's not. Last year there was approximately 160 substitute authorities and 118 in lieu position authorities. This year's around 140 for both substitute and in lieu position authorities, so it's not too different, but it changes from year to year depending on the needs of the departments.
And obviously, substitute authorities are generally used for temporary purposes. So for those who are identified for peak workload purposes, are those expected to continue, or are those expected to conclude during this fiscal year?
It'll conclude this fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Well, with those questions answered, we will note and file the CAO's report. Thank you very much. Item number 10.
Item 10, motion Martinez-Gregorian relative to eliminating salary history information from the city's employment applications and the feasibility of prohibiting all employers within the city of Los Angeles and those outside the city who do business within the city limits from seeking salary information from their applicants.
And do we have a staff report on this? Anyone here representing? Is there anything notable? I think we've gotten an email, but we haven't gotten a formal letter. Take a minute to look at this.
That's a good question. I don't know. Because they don't care.
Good morning. We've been joined by Mr. Harris Dawson. And are we able to reopen the items that have been heard? And
We can continue the matter to another meeting, or are you
no,
like-
just for a vote, so we have a.
Sorry?
now that we have a quorum, whether we're able to,
We can go back as far as the past items and retroactively approve them if that's the councilman's desire.
sorry, I missed that last part.
We can go back and retroactively approve the items previously considered, and councilman chooses.
So we have approved items 5 through 9 on consent, and also approved items 1 through 4 as communications from the chair. If we could reopen those items and ask Mr. Harris Dawson for his support on those items.
Mr. Harris Dawson concurs.
Thank you. And that's on items 1 through 4 and 5 through 9.
5 through 9.
Yes. Then item 10 is a motion by Ms. Martinez. I do have some questions. It doesn't appear that anybody is necessarily here from personnel or Ms. Martinez's office to answer them. So we will continue item 10 to our next meeting. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is continued from June 29, 2016 and August 1st, 2016. Department of Animal Services reports in response to motion Buscaino-Corretz relative to the Coyote Management Program.
Good morning.
Good morning. And if you could briefly recap where we are in the process.
I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can. Thank you, sir. Mark Salazar, Director of Field Operations, Animal Services. To my right, your left, is Officer Hong Din. He is our Animal Control Officer assigned to the Wildlife Program. We had a motion on May 24th issued asking for some information regarding our Coyote Management Program. We did have a meeting here with Paul on June 29th and August 3rd. Just a real quick recap, the department does have wildlife program information available on the city's website, on the department's website, which includes informational brochures and contact information. In addition, as I mentioned, Officer Din being here, we are really one of the only type of municipality agencies that has a officer dedicated to a wildlife program to help be a liaison with Fish and Wildlife and other agencies as well. We have a process for reporting coyote activity and our response. The officer here also just works real closely again with California Fish and Wildlife, National Park Service, Los Angeles Rec and Parks, the park rangers, LAPD block captains, and they share information and data that helps with understanding coyote behavior in an urban setting. The department has made some recommendations, and we are working on some of these recommendations as we speak. One is a press release the department will put together and provide on our website, and also be able to produce and do email blasts out. We have some revisions that we're working on our website that will make it a little more user-friendly and quicker to access necessary information. Enforcement, we do use the Administrative Citation Enforcement Program successfully, I might add, to actually cite violators who are out there feeding the coyotes, which are attracting them into some of our neighborhoods. Resources that we have, we're working with California Fish and Wildlife, national parks, and looking at other agencies as well too regarding programs that they have where they can come alongside the city and kind of complement or help aid what we're doing here in the city. Unfortunately, we continue to run into this little bit of a blockade with them where they just don't have the necessary resources or volunteers to completely dedicate in. They have great ideas. We just are looking for continued support from some of these programs, but we're still in discussions with them. As far as outreach, we are also scheduling, and I think we have our first one here towards the end of the month, regular meetings twice a month at our animal shelters where we will invite the public in to come in and also just get updates on wildlife activity in their areas, be able to answer questions, meet staff. We're also soliciting, starting to look more closely for volunteers that might be able to help our wildlife officer kind of answer public questions and be there's only one of him for the entire city, and you already know of our limited staff resources, so we're looking at other creative ways that we can help kind of spread the wealth of this information, this good information to share. And then city support. We're looking into things with other departments where maybe we could get the wildlife proof trash containers distributed citywide, improve signage citywide. That also, and as I understand, there may be some council support looking to help us move in that direction. Just a real quick update on September 28th, the General Manager and Officer Dan attended a meeting that Councilmember Bonin hosted out in the Westchester area. What was wonderful about that meeting is that they had a couple of professors, or doctors I should say, maybe professors as well, from LMU that talked about the characteristics about wildlife, really what their behaviors are, what the benefits are of having them, and how they are going to be with us. And really, I think the sense of the meeting, and I'll give Officer Dan just a quick second here because he was at the meeting to share, I think it really calmed the community, answered a lot of questions about really who these neighbors of ours are and how do we get along with them. So do you want to take just a quick second?
Sure. So that was a wonderful meeting. We had over 200 people in attendance, so it was fantastic to see the awareness. Two highlights. One was the outside perspective. These guys are doctors from the East Coast, and they've studied coyotes for over 30 years. And the coyotes in the East Coast are actually 10 pounds larger than the ones we have here, and they seem to be doing fine. So they said LA is actually one of the cities that's been dealing with this problem for quite a long time. And then they showed a nice nature series, which is really interesting. It had one of our oldest officers 40 years ago in the video talking about coyotes and basically saying almost verbatim everything I've been saying this last year. So it's pretty eerie in a way, but at the same time, he's been talking about coyotes being in the city of LA for quite some time.
So it's not necessarily a new problem. It is one that's been existing here, and
seems a little more widespread than it was.
And we think a lot of that, council member, is attributed to social media. We really believe that the social media really does pick up on a little bit of the hype with some of the, because we continue to find also that a number of our calls where before we might get a caller when we didn't have the social media, we're now getting 22 callers on the same calls. And then the story kind of spans from there. So an illustration of this is, I think at one point they thought they had 40 or something different type of coyote activities out in the Westchester area, and really it turned out to be 5 when we did the research. And even validating that those were actually coyote incidents, it's more likely they are, but we still don't have that, as a fact. Another meeting we did have was in the San Pedro area, also Councilmember Buscaino's area, and Officer Din was also at that meeting, and they have a very active community group that's really taking a lot of this information to heart and is stepping up. I think it's great. They're going to have a great information share system, and we'll still be responsive to their needs and their questions. Aside from that, I understand that a letter was also sent to council members from Project Coyote, and I just wanted to read just an excerpt of it from a gentleman by the name of Randy Felich, if I'm saying the name correctly. And okay, are you here? It's here? Oh, you're here. Great. Our general manager, she would know. Recent attacks reported are largely due to garbage not contained and feeding in local parks. This should not influence your direction on coexistence. Scientific studies show that trapping does not work. Coyotes play a vital role in maintaining a healthy ecosystem, providing free rodent control, among other ecological services. So he was very supportive of our approach in the educational manner, and then taking some proactive, if we can, with things like the trash cans. And that's our brief update.
Thank you for the report. I really appreciate the comment about 40 years ago. I can remember being really small. There were a lot of coyotes, even back then, throughout South LA, and I remember even towards Westchester. The difference was, or at least one difference that I'd ask you all to comment on, when I was growing up, everybody in my block was from the South, right? And a bunch of people had chickens, so people knew how to deal with animals. So they knew how to keep them away. There was the occasional shotgun in the sky. which is not socially acceptable anymore. So people knew how to do things in order to deal with animals. And I was very small, but I don't think people were calling the city every time they saw a coyote. And so it seems like, people are entirely different now. Like people like me, I have zero experience with animals. If I see a coyote, I might dial 911 actually. So I'm just wondering, do you find that accounts for some of the changes in terms of dealing with wildlife in the urban areas?
I have a thought, and you're welcome to share yours too. A number of municipal agencies, in fact, I'm not sure if I know of necessarily one, like I said, we dedicate an officer to be a liaison with Fish and Wildlife. Most city agencies defer wildlife calls to Fish and Wildlife. It really does fall under their jurisdiction. We have really just taken an extra step here for a long time in this department and provided an officer that will kind of be that helping hand out there, sharing information, being responsive. At one time, we were even trapping ourselves. And so I think that may have kind of helped to facilitate this different type of relationship with the community that said, hey, if you have a problem, call us. We're here. We'll come out there and take care of it. And now we're at a place where we're trying to come out and better educate how we're going to live with the coyotes. Because we found out trapping and killing them wasn't removing them. It's only creating a vacuum, and they're eventually backfilling, and sometimes with more coyotes. And then we're looking now at more of the benefits of even the coyotes being in the community. Councilmember Buscana did a great job this last report where he shared some data about, the likelihood of being attacked or injured by a coyote compared to other animals in the community. So those are just my thoughts on it. I think a lot of it has just been that the department has been very proactive trying to answer community needs, constituent needs. This gentleman here, he's 40 guys in one, so he really does get out there and do a lot of door knocks and handshakes, excellent at public meetings. Any thoughts that you have?
Yeah, so you had a great point. That's a very great point. Yeah, before, people used to take things in their own hands, and if you look at the demographics of my statistics, coyotes are pretty much everywhere in the city, and yet certain parts of the city, certain jurisdictions, certain districts don't report as many. So that's the interesting aspect. Now, I will say, going on the outside scope of just coyotes alone, opossums. A lot of times, people that haven't seen an opossum or dealt with one, they tend to go a little overboard and get hysterical over it. So, yeah, if you're removed from the situation, I think it does contribute to a little bit of the unknown or the mystery of it. Nevertheless, that's one aspect. And another maybe contributing factor is the fact that as our population grows, just in ratio, our trash, everything, pets, the amount of pets that we own grows and everything else. So I think it might go hand in hand there.
Good.
Have we looked at programs that places like Calabasas are engaging in successfully, and are there best practices that we take away from other successful programs?
We have, and we detailed that, I think, in a prior report. We looked at, I believe, 4 or 5 different communities. One of the interesting facts about those communities is they are embracing the Wildlife Watch program with Fish and Wildlife, but that program has changed a bit. It's no longer where really Fish and Wildlife is taking responsibility for the program. They're really putting the emphasis of the program on the community, or in most cases the police department, because they have the tightest net with the community through their neighborhood watch programs, and it's just like another element that adds on to share information. But what we are discovering also is that there is more of a trapping, and there's more of some time on the city's behalf of killing the coyotes and removing them themselves as well. What I'm hearing from Fish and Wildlife is that only eliminates the problem in a particular neighborhood, and it's not a long-term effect either. So as far as other program benefits, what we're doing, how we're resourcing, and the folks that we're working with to continue to expand our ideas in our program, we seem to be very much in line with what others are doing.
Have we ever looked at trap, neuter, release as a possibility to try and slowly reduce the population in a humane way?
They
don't sterilize coyotes.
Yeah, they don't. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it was brought up at the meeting, and it's too cost prohibitive.
So how costly would it be?
First of all, I guess what nature.
I think it's a risk factor too. There just aren't veterinarians around who are equipped to do trap, neuter, and release of coyotes or to sterilize them. There have been a number of projects to try to temporarily sterilize a population of wildlife for a certain period of time, but they have not really proved effective.
And the state actually has a program that I tried to eliminate when I was in the legislature that's similar, where they actually would shoot wolves using helicopters. So that was even worse because sometimes they would just wound them, and obviously very inhumane. Sometimes they'd have accidents, and the people actually would wind up being injured that were operating it. But at the end of the day, it didn't accomplish anything. It didn't actually reduce the wolf population. And I think the same is generally true of coyotes. If you try to kill some off, generally they come back just as strong as before, and sometimes even larger populations. So it seems like we have a pretty good strategy that we're moving forward with. I think we're already doing okay, but I think through this process we've probably identified some additional best practices, and I think we're moving in the right direction.
I think the meetings too that we're scheduling will also help a lot, because they will be regular meetings that will provide information out to the public on that they can come and attend and get updated information, understand how things work and who to talk to. And I think that'll be a huge benefit in addition to the press releases we do.
And do we keep any real data on coyote attacks? And how easy is it to identify with the problem that you laid out of 40 people reporting something and then there really being a maximum of 5 and then not even being clear that all 5 are coyotes?
We do keep records on all of the wildlife calls. What we've experienced in going through, and we've had public records requests for wildlife calls, is that the way that the call comes in, it depends how the call's described. And some people will say possible coyote attack, or I saw a coyote. It doesn't mean that it was a coyote. When the officer gets out there, they may find out it was just a dog-on-dog attack. They may get out there and find that this had nothing to do with a coyote. It was something else that had occurred, hit by car or something else that could have occurred. And so, but we still took the information in as a possible coyote attack. I think it's something that, looking ahead, we could probably refine better how to categorize actually what an attack is. We've recently had discussions on, when we go out and do those investigations, really verifying the information to say that it is a coyote and not just we had 40 types of calls for coyotes, but we can't verify any of them. So it's an excellent question, but to answer it, yes, we do keep records. It could just be, I think, improved on.
So do we have a sense of whether there are more coyote attacks than there were 10 years ago, let's say?
No, we're finding we have this. We're finding our numbers are really the same as what they have been. When we get down to the meat and potatoes of it, it's what it has been consistently. What's changing in it is we're just getting more calls for the same attack, if you will. And not only are we getting those calls, other agencies are getting those calls, like Fish and Wildlife are getting those calls as well too. So it's a lot of it is social media, and I can't even think of the number of times we get them from people out of state sending us information about something that happened. It's just, it really is a very viral process.
And it may, that in the reverse may actually help with the education process as well, because we, obviously, as we add best practices and we want to educate people on the right steps to take, we can respond through social media and get that word out much more easily than we could 40 years ago, even if we were saying largely the same things, which is really interesting.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for your enlightening us, and we have one speaker from the public, Eric Dirtoff from PETA.
Thank you. How are you guys?
Doing well, doing well.
Awesome. So, council members, my name is Eric Dudorf, and I'm from PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I just want to thank LA Animal Services for their awesome job on educating people on coexisting with coyotes, making sure that people aren't leaving food out, they're securing their trash, supervising pets and children when they're outside, and just making sure that the program's successful the way it is. So I just wanted to come and thank you guys and thank LA Animal Services.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And if there's no further comments or questions, I'd like to move that we, I only have one card, but if you could fill one out after you speak, that would be fine.
May I just have a couple of quick comments about the coyote plan? I'm really concerned because I've seen a lot of the information being presented to the city, and the bulk of the information is being presented by animal rights groups. They're not being represented by canid biologists that specifically deal with coyotes. I went to the San Pedro meeting with the animal officer, I'm bad with names, and the Park Service person and this gentleman got a lot of information wrong about coyotes. They're talking about how hazing is always the most appropriate thing, but there are multiple studies that show that hazing isn't effective on habituated animals. There's not one study that proves it. And the person that got attacked, it was 3 individuals that got attacked in Montebello recently. One was attacked while he was waving and yelling at the coyote. So I really like to see a balanced approach that includes information from professional canid biologists in this. I'm concerned it's too many animal welfare groups putting their input in, and it's not a fair representation of the issue.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your testimony.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Stephen Childs. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And with that input in mind, I would nonetheless ask that we approve the Buscaino motion and note and file the Animal Services Department report without objection. And anything left on our agenda?
That is all, Councilman.
With nothing left on our agenda, we are adjourned.